Everyone tells you the same thing when you feel stuck. Be disciplined. Be productive. Wake up earlier. Try harder. But that advice assumes something that isn't true. It assumes you're starting from zero. Most people aren't starting from zero. They're starting from negative. They're not just unproductive. They're exhausted, overstimulated, and quietly fighting themselves every day. Here's the part nobody says out loud. When you're stuck, the problem usually isn't that you're not doing enough good things. It's that you're doing too many things that are slowly draining you. What are those things? Not dramatic things, not obvious disasters. Small, quiet habits that feel harmless in the moment. Endless scrolling just to avoid silence. Gaming long after it stopped being fun. Watching things you don't even enjoy anymore, just to feel something. Constant stimulation so your mind never has to be alone with itself. You're not resting, you're anesthetizing. And until those stop, nothing else really works. I used to think I was lazy. I had things to do, important things, work, goals, plans for my life. But instead, I'd sit in my room for hours. Not resting, not recovering, just busy. Watching videos, playing with my tool, playing games. Looking for anything that could keep my mind occupied for a few minutes. Not because I enjoyed it, but because I couldn't sit with nothing. And the worst part wasn't even the time wasted. It was what happened underneath. While my hands were busy, my mind was eating itself alive. Every hour that passed made it worse. More guilt, more pressure, less energy. And the harder I tried to be productive, the heavier everything felt. So I did what most people do. I escaped again. This is where most discipline advice gets it wrong. It tells you to add effort to a system that's already overloaded. But the brain doesn't work that way. Your brain doesn't ask, "Is this good for my future?" It asks, "Does this relieve discomfort right now?" That's it. If your brain is overwhelmed, it will accept anything that provides fast relief. It doesn't matter where the dopamine comes from. Short term, it all feels the same. That's why people don't fail because they're weak. They fail because they're constantly numbing themselves. Here's the insight that changed everything for me. At the beginning of change, you don't need to be productive. You don't need discipline. You don't need motivation. You just need to stop being destructive. And stop junk feeding your brain. That's it. Not do better. Just stop doing damage. This sounds small, but it changes the entire game. Because when you stop numbing yourself, something uncomfortable returns. Silence, boredom, restlessness. Most people are terrified of that feeling, so they kill it immediately. But that feeling isn't the enemy. That feeling is the brain saying, "I need something real." When I stopped feeding myself constant stimulation, something strange happened. I still wasn't productive. I didn't suddenly wake up motivated. I didn't start grinding. I didn't become disciplined overnight. I just stopped running. No porn. No endless games. No constant videos to keep my mind busy. And for a while, I did nothing. And that nothing felt horrible at first. But it was clean. No guilt hangover. No mental fog. No self-hatred afterward. Just discomfort. And discomfort has direction. Here's what nobody explains. Boredom is not empty. Boredom is pressure. And pressure, when it's not numbed, pushes you somewhere. You don't need to force yourself to do good things. If you remove the bad ones, your brain will start searching on its own. And when it can't escape anymore, it turns toward life. That's where change actually begins. Not with discipline, with removing the anesthetic. When you remove the easy escapes, something interesting happens. You don't suddenly become inspired, you become restless. And that restlessness is important, because for the first time, your brain has a problem it can't solve by scrolling, clicking, or numbing itself. So it starts asking a different question. Not, how do I escape this feeling? But, what do I do with it? This is where most people panic. They think restlessness means they're failing, that something is wrong. But restlessness is not failure. Restlessness is unused energy. When I was in that phase, I still didn't wake up productive. I didn't plan my day, I didn't follow routines, but I noticed something subtle. I couldn't just sit there anymore. Doing nothing stopped being tolerable. So I stood up. Not with a big plan, not with motivation. I just moved. That's how it starts. You clean something small. You take a shower. You cook food because eating junk feels worse than the effort of cooking. Not because you're disciplined, but because discomfort needs an outlet. And slowly, almost accidentally, your life starts to move again. This is the part people misunderstand. They think discipline comes from force, but real discipline is a byproduct. It appears when your environment stops fighting you. When you're no longer draining yourself all day, effort becomes lighter. Not easy, but possible. Eventually, I noticed something else. I started going to the gym. Not because I became a gym person, but because my body wanted release. I started working. Not because I loved it, but because it felt better than sitting with that restless energy. Because when you're not constantly numbed, you begin to care. That's the real shift. You don't care because you're motivated. You're motivated because you're no longer exhausted. Most people try to build discipline on top of destruction. They keep overstimulating, numbing discomfort, leaking energy. Then they wonder why nothing sticks. You can't out-discipline a system that's actively draining you. But when you stop the drain, even average effort works. Here's the quiet truth. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your defaults. And if your defaults are destructive, no amount of motivation will save you. But if your defaults are neutral, if you're not hurting yourself, growth becomes the path of least resistance. That's why the first step isn't do more, it's do less harm. No constant stimulation just to survive the day. Not forever, just long enough for your nervous system to remember what normal feels like. This isn't about becoming perfect. I still have lazy days. I still waste time sometimes. The difference is awareness. I notice when I'm trying to escape instead of rest. And most of the time, I choose something real. Not because I force myself, because I actually want to. If you're stuck right now, don't ask yourself, how do I become productive? Ask, what am I doing that's keeping me stuck? Then remove one thing. Not replace it, not optimize it, just remove it. And let boredom do its work. Discipline doesn't start with effort. It starts with honesty. And sometimes, the most powerful move forward is simply stopping the thing that's pulling you backward. That's not weakness. That's how change actually begins.